Awesome. All right. Well, welcome everybody to our weekly sync. Very nice to see you all. I've been looking forward to this. So just to give you a quick overview of what we're going to do today. So we're going to dive into demos after this. And then Lauren is going to do a presentation on pair programming, which I'm very excited about. Lauren, thank you for that. And then we'll cover issues that we're going to cover this next week. And then I saw, Quinn, that you opened up a Slack thread too, just for some extra things, and I was reading through that. So if we have some extra time at the end too, if you all want to talk about any extra issues that you'd like to make, just from the ideas in that thread, Lauren and Matt and I can take those on and start making new issues too. All right, so before we dive into demos, just wanted to do a quick pulse check. How was this week for everyone on the thumb scale? Just up, it was great. Sideways, it was like, and then down, it was kind of a rough week. Pretty good, sideways. Okay, so pretty good, some sideways. Any challenges or anything, places where people could use support that they want to talk about here with everybody? And if not, totally okay, just wanted to open the floor.
I think mine, like, I definitely need to actually ask for support. This week was really hard for me just mentally for some reason. I had a very, like, high-strung anxiety week where everything was upsetting me and, like, anything could push me to tears and, like, for no reason. There's, like, absolutely no reason. But I, like, kept getting stuck, and, like, luckily mentor Lauren helped me work through it right before this, but it just took me that long to, like, get to an understanding point of myself and it was the stupidest little struggle, but just, like, working through my own, like, ability to ask for help and recognizing that I need help instead of just, like, letting my anxiety rule me.
Tiana, I'm so sorry that that happened to you this week. I had a week like that about 2 weeks ago where it felt like if somebody looked at me sideways, I would just, like, explode. So
exactly that. There's, like, nothing happening that should be causing this. I'm like, all right, this is what's happening.
I think too, Lauren and Matt and I will try to be more proactive too about in Slack, just saying, hey, if anybody needs help, we'll be available for the next hour or so, or we'll make those spaces so that if you all do need help, you don't necessarily have to reach out. We can just have the spaces for that too.
Yep, good idea.
Yeah. All right. Anything else anybody wants to discuss before we hop into demos? Okay. All right, let's go to demos then. I am very excited to see. I read your PRs this week. They were awesome. So I am just going to look at the first one here. Could I ask Quinn and Lauren, could I ask you two to start off, and then Tiana and Kat will jump to you next?
Sure. Lauren, do you want me to share my screen, or should I walk through it, or do you want to share a screen?
It doesn't matter to me. Sure. Do you
Okay.
want to share your screen?
Sure.
Okay. So let's start with the actual site and just show the user, and then we can talk through the code.
Netflix movies.
Okay.
Okay, so this week, not a lot happened in terms of visually what you can, there wasn't a big change for the user experience in terms of how the site looks, but we added the capability for a user to join an existing list by entering the 3-word token. So on the front end, are you already cleared with local storage? I guess you must have just done that. Yeah, so go ahead and
oh, yeah.
Go ahead and demo, please.
Yeah, enter token. Okay.
And then it'll bring you to the existing list. And this was made before the other team had done their tasks, so that's why there are some repeat items here. And that's about it for this side. And then maybe we can jump into the code. Oh, one more thing we added is that if there is a token currently, it will not take you to the welcome page. So this means that each person can only have one list currently without going in and doing a local storage clear. So we were thinking about that as an extra feature. I think being able to log out of a current list and then being able to to join another list. So we're hoping to add that on as an additional task.
Cool. And should I go to App.js or?
I'm sorry?
Where should I go on the code for that? Yeah.
Sure, yeah, let's do this. So here we added, down below, we added a handle submit form to a handle submit function to our form. And thanks to the feedback, we adjusted the label so that it's more user-friendly and more accessible to that specific field. But here on submit of the button, on press of the button, it triggers the submit function, which will then it will set the token. There we go. It will set the token, and then that will trigger the front end to join the Firebase store with that list. And then it was also recommended that we add the trim function so that there's no extra space and on the beginning or end of a token. And finally, can you go to app? Here down below, we wrote a ternary so that if there isn't a token, once someone does set a token and it's in local storage, then it will redirect them to the list automatically. Otherwise, it will send them to the welcome screen, and we're passing in the set token function so that someone can do that from that component. And I think that's it. Quinn, can you think of anything else?
There was like a minor adjustment made to the unsubscribe because it wasn't actually it wasn't working as intended. But I think that there were no errors because app never really unmounts unless you leave the page. So that was one thing, and then I think
oh yes, the load. We added the
the loading. Yes, yeah. So we added a loading ternary just to make sure that there was a quick flash of like welcome to your shopping list. There are no items here page or like UI. So and that wasn't necessarily true because then a second later the Firebase would actually load your results. So we added it as loading ternary to make sure that we accounted for the third state where Firebase had to return results, but you do have a list. Yeah, I think
that's a good
I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. I have like a comment, I guess, just something that I noticed myself, but I know that I think on Kat and Tiana's PR, I had like put like, oh, we should like trim the input because it makes sense to like get rid of a white space, and then like a day or whatever later, Kat was like, oh, it makes sense for you guys to trim the input too. So it's like I don't know, I kind of noticed like how I don't. I was like, I didn't even realize it on my own thing, but I realized it was somebody else's. So, but yeah, that's it.
Cool. Are there any questions?
Can you show everyone again how you cleared storage?
Oh yeah.
Maybe not everybody knows how to do that.
Yeah. In the browser terminal, I guess you can access local storage by typing in local storage, and there are a couple of methods on it, and one of them is clear, and that'll remove all items from local storage. So if you call clear on local storage, now we have no items in the object.
Yeah, and then the two other main functions that we've been using are get item and set item, I believe. So that's how we're sending that in from the front end, so that then the browser will save that, and that's how. In addition to this, that's how a lot of times people stay logged into a site, so that they can. It keeps like an encrypted token in their browser, and then they don't have to log in each time.
Cool. So then that's a nice way that everyone can just reset their shopping list, like if they need to test this functionality, right, to go back to the home screen, that's a nice way to clear out your token from local storage and be able to start all over again.
Awesome. Great job. All right. Tiana and Kat, would you like to go next?
Well, I will share my screen.
Amazing. And I can walk you guys through what we worked on this week.
All right, that's not what I want. There we go.
Beautiful. You might want to open like the one that exists like in Maine, just like the live production site.
You mean our branch itself?
No, I mean like the one that we merged together, like the actual like live production site that we've got going on.
The Netify thing?
Yeah, the Netlify site.
Okay, what do I need to put in for that?
Here, let me just paste it to you in the chat. Oh, Quinn already has it in the chat.
Sorry,
Yeah, you got it. So fast.
I am not seeing. Oh, in that chat. I'm way off.
Yeah, the Zoom chat.
That actually makes things more difficult because now I got to figure out how to locate that.
We can just do it on here too. It's fine. We don't need the feature that they added to sort of walk through what we did.
And this was, I already pulled Maine, so this is everything in general. So anyways, if we have our add item list, say that's our list. Obviously it looks like a mess. I kind of want to do a new list. Darn it. Go back. This is a great demo. You're welcome.
I think that you can just like clear the token to make a new one, or go into like a private browser. It'll be the only way to create a new list.
And I just got something in my eye. I had this all ready, and here we are. There's that.
All right, well, I can just sort of like set the scene for everyone. Tiana and I think we're both a little like less comfortable with like working on these kinds of things, just because we're, I would say, the two least experienced in the group. So we were kind of banging our head against a wall trying to find the right function. So our PR was like super, super amazing this week, just because of all of the great ideas from like Lauren and Quinn and the mentors. So what we decided to do in order to avoid duplicates was to use regex to sort of remove any special characters from the string when we were like comparing it against what existed in our like results property of state. So doing that ultimately removed those characters to compare, but still allowed you, we did have special characters, to include those in your entry. So Tiana, if you want to add an item.
Let's do rice, add item. We edit that.
Oh, something's not working here.
I had rice has been, this has not been added yet. This is a new one.
Okay, did you hit add item?
Yeah, so I have a localhost. Rice has been successfully added to list.
Oh, okay. I'm just like not seeing it on this end, I guess.
Can anybody else see it?
I can't see it, but that might be Zoom. I'm just not showing it.
Yeah, it's probably just not Zoom. It's just Zoom.
Weird. Okay. I wonder if that's like our, all right. Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of the whole sharing screens then. Here, let's
yeah.
try this one. I'm wondering if it's because of incognito.
No, it's probably just like the fact that it's sharing the browser window, and the alert is just like not present technically in like that specific window, perhaps.
Let's do pineapple. Kind of soon, whatever. Can you guys see that one?
No, unfortunately.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, it says we got an alert. It says it was successfully added. And then if I do it again, we get an alert that says pineapple already exists on your list. That's too bad. All right.
We trust you. We believe you.
Let me bring up our code.
Well, if you looked at the PR, we did screenshot the alerts that exist. We also added a feature as per like Quinn's suggestion to trim the string, which ultimately turns it into absolutely nothing on submit, so that it will return false and will give the same error message as ultimately it wouldn't even create an error message because it's ultimately under the same function that's rejecting an empty string as an input that Lauren included when she created the component in a previous week, I believe. As per the code, as you can see here, we've got our fun regex, which ultimately is looking for special characters and replacing them with nothing in both the input in the field and in the string. So if there is something, it will throw an error message to the user, and if not, it will add the item to Firestore. And then we're also clearing in the field if there is a successful input and not clearing the field if the input already exists or is similar without the additional characters to an item that already exists. Additionally, we did add on the, I think it was like on click of the button, a function to trim the input. Ultimately, just because then we didn't have to create sort of an asynchronous function in the on submit, just because it wasn't trimming in time. And if we added it to anything that was ultimately handling the set name, it was trimming it live and wouldn't allow any sort of input with a space in it. So the input couldn't be 2 words because anytime it was finding a space at the end, it was getting rid of it. Yeah, Tiana, did you have anything else that you wanted to chat about what we worked on this week?
No, that you nailed it. Yeah.
Awesome. Great job, both. Regex is a little tricky to work with, so great job working with that. I really loved the screenshots that you had on your PR too. They were great examples of it.
Yeah, I generally really hate regex. Did you guys use a particular tool or anything?
I think that Andrew reposted it in like the learning together channel, but it's also in our thread. It was just like a regex checker. I can repost it in our channel, but yeah, no, I absolutely love regex. It's like kind of like a fun puzzle of like weird characters that you can just sort of like mess around in. Like to the point where like in my boot camp, I was like working on a project and was using regex instead of just like the built-in like browser like default. Because I was just like, oh, it's so fun. I really want to play with this. And they were like, why did you even do this? It's already in the browser to check for emails. Like, I was like, I don't know. I was just having fun.
That is awesome, Kat. I feel like there's always one person like on a team that's just an absolute regex wizard that everyone goes to. So I have a feeling and that's a very valuable skill to have. All right, awesome. Great job, everybody. Those were great demos.
Super job.
So I think next, Lauren, can I turn it over to you for the pair programming demonstration?
Yeah, sounds good. So now we know who to go to for all of our regex questions. Kat, you're on the hook now. All right, let me share my screen. So now that we've had a few weeks of practice, I want to talk about pair programming, and then let's see, one moment. No, I want to do that. I'm going to bring this to my main window so that I can focus on the camera so it doesn't look like I'm looking off into looking off to the side while I'm presenting. All right, so okay, so I want to talk about pair programming today. So there's a very small presentation, and more than anything, I want to talk about and get feedback on what everyone's experience has been like so far with pair programming, like what's been working really well, what's been challenging. That's what I'd like to talk about, like spend more time in discussion than on this presentation in general. So pair programming is really the heart and soul, the lifeblood of what we do here at Collab Lab. And just a definition, 2 developers are sitting together or in different time zones in front of a computer, take turns writing code using just one keyboard. So we'll have 2 different roles. This is one way of approaching pair programming. So you can have a driver and a navigator. So the driver is controlling the keyboard and is responsible for writing the code that needs to be written in order to complete the particular task. So this person, it's really important for them to be verbalizing their thinking process as much as possible. So it's not just typing, typing, typing while the navigator sits idly by, but it's really communicating ideas and getting back and forth communication about what they're thinking the code should be. The navigator then is observing what the driver is typing, and they're paying close attention to the code, offering guidance, suggesting alternatives. Often this person is responsible for Googling and looking at the documentation, right? And finding like, oh, we're stuck on this particular thing. The navigator then can go off and Google some issues and share information that they've found to help both of you then navigate that particular challenge.
Lauren?
So yeah.
Are you doing a presentation?
Oh, can you not see it?
I just see your terminal.
Sorry. Yeah,
Oh,
desktop,
I'm
Lauren,
sorry.
sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. One moment. I think because I moved my thing. Thank you.
There we go.
There, okay. Thank you.
Lauren, thank you for saying that too.
Yes, I know. Thank you for not letting me destroy the presentation. All right, so really we have a driver and a navigator, right? The driver is responsible for typing. And the most important part for the driver is to verbalize what they're doing, right? And to ask for ideas and bounce ideas off of one another. The navigator then is paying close attention to what the driver is typing, acting as a sounding board, offering ideas, and then Googling issues that come up, right? So this is one way to approach it, so pairing remotely, right, which is what most of us are doing now, and of course it's what we do in Collab Lab. There are lots of amazing tools that make collaborating remotely work really well, but it can be a super simple setup. So you hop on a screen share, you hop on a Zoom call, the driver is sharing their screen and coding while the navigator provides feedback. The driver is verbalizing what they're doing. So this is really the important part, I think, that the driver then pushes up their code to the remote branch. The navigator can then pull down that code locally, and the driver and navigator switch roles. It's really important when pairing that you have the opportunity to function as either one of those roles, that you're not always the driver and you're not always the navigator, but everyone gets the opportunity to practice those different roles. I think for many of us, one role can feel more comfortable than the other, and it's important to kind of stretch yourself and challenge yourself to try that other role that maybe you feel less comfortable in. So talking about mindset and attitude for pairing. So pairing isn't really like, it's not a teaching mentorship relationship. It doesn't have to be. It's an exercise in sharing. It can be, for example, it can be more efficient to go with your pairing partner's idea than to fight strongly for your own approach. It's important to have a beginner's mindset, be really open to other people's ideas, embracing doubt and possibility. It's the opportunity to learn new ways of approaching problems. I'm so always surprised by like how differently all of us think about different problems and challenges and issues in code. And I always learn new things from my colleagues when I'm pairing. And again, for the drivers, it's really important to seek agreement before proceeding. You're not just writing all the code and then pushing it up, but to talk about those ideas, to verbalize what you're doing. And then for the navigators, ask questions and ask, and don't tell the other person what to do, but kind of asking for like, oh, this is my idea, what do you think? So I guess this is the what I wanted to get to is what have been the positive and less positive things about pairing so far. I will say, like, from my own experience, I find it easier to be the navigator. Like, I'm more comfortable with the navigator role than I am with the driver role. And I know that that's not the same for everybody. And then I tend to like assume that everybody knows more than I do, right? Like, I make that assumption all the time. And yeah, that's my own personal experience. So I always have to challenge myself to be the driver. That's my own personal challenge. So what's everyone else's experience has been so far with Collab Lab?
I'm definitely, I shared that, Lauren, in that I always assume the other person knows more than I do, which often when you've been working on a feature is not the case at all. And so you do have to kind of slow down and explain to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
I'm also, I've been trying to work on this, but I find if I'm personally confused by the code and I'm navigating, I try to jump into driving and doing things like adding console logs or just trying things instead of asking the driver like, oh, hey, could you add a console log here? Or could you maybe try this add a variable and we'll see what this is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to make sure, okay, if I'm in the navigator role, I'm actually navigating, not driving. And then if I'm in the driver role, making sure that like I don't jump ahead without talking to the person that I'm actually pairing with, and making sure that we're both thinking and trying to solve the same problem at the same time.
Cool. Let's see, Lauren, what feedback do you have, or what has been your experience so far with pair programming?
I don't really have a preference for either one. I think I've actually mostly been the navigator for the past few weeks, but I think for me, I've learned to just ask questions if I don't understand, but I also am worried, like, if it's something that I may or may not be more familiar with, I don't want to come across as like I'm trying to be a mentor or something, but I also don't want to go ahead without if they have questions. So I think it's like a finding the balance of like wanting to be helpful, but also not acting like I'm trying to teach something, which is not the case. So yeah, I think it's just, but I have found, I think I'm pretty comfortable asking, I don't know what's going on, please tell me. But yeah, if anybody feels that way, please, I would never want to come across that way. So just let me know. And yeah, that's my comment.
That's awesome. That's great to like just be honest about and open to saying like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, it's important. Nobody understands everything all of the time. So it's nice to just slow things down and let your needs be known, I guess. What else? Kat, what has your experience been like so far?
Well, I really prefer being the navigator, just because I feel like I can get overwhelmed trying to like type and like listen at the same time when somebody else is navigating. And I have to like keep asking them to like stop and go back, and like I am the queen of typos. But also like I find it like really difficult for me when I am in either position when I like explain something, just because like I'm not too sure if like what I'm saying doesn't make sense in like an action, like in the context of what we're doing, or if I'm just like explaining things wrong because I'm really uncomfortable with the terminology still because I'm so like fresh at this. So I feel like I need to like back up what I'm saying with like evidence. So like that's why I'm like really heavy into like sending articles and things like that, just to be like, okay, maybe I can't explain this thing that I think, but like here's an article that says it. And like I always worry too that comes across like maybe a little condescending, but like it's not. It's just like I want to make sure that like what I'm trying to communicate is being communicated, you know? So like it's a little awkward for me still, but I think I'm like getting it.
Cool. Yeah, I think that that learning how to code, I think, for me personally, the most challenging part is articulating your ideas in a way that other people can understand, two, in a way that's like it's speaking in a technical way. Like that is super challenging, and that's one of the reasons why it's important to function in both of those roles, right? To have the opportunity to practice getting better at that articulation of your technical ideas. It's challenging. Tiana, how's your experience been so far?
Pair coding is always hit or miss for me. I feel like it's kind of like what Kat explained, where I'm personally a terrible typer, and I'm very fast at pecking, but I'm very slow compared to everybody else, and I do a lot of typos as well. So that gives me a lot of like anxiety itself to be like, okay, what am I doing? And I need a lot of direction when I am the person doing that. But I would say with these experience currently, things have gone pretty well. I think it's a very big learning process for all of us. I think with Kat and I, one of the things that we ran into is that we both, like she kind of said, I wouldn't say, I'd say like, yeah, less experienced, where we both had an idea of what would work and we both ran with it. And that I think made it complicated, and like that's partially my fault because I couldn't get it out of my head, this like one thing that I wanted to do. And so I couldn't even like focus on what she was saying because I was doing something at the same time. So it wasn't like we were basically doing the same things at the same time, which we shouldn't have done. And again, that's like partially on me because I couldn't get it out of my head. So it's mostly like me stepping back and being like, what's my role? And just like maybe having defining roles from the get-go, and like, yeah. So I just think that I can easily get lost in my own head during the process.
Yeah, maybe this is a good framework to like practice for this week. Say, okay, I'm going to be, so and so is the driver, so and so is the navigator, and then to again make sure that everyone has the opportunity to switch roles, and to clarify those expectations in front. I think that would be really useful, just to give it a try, like see how it works for everyone, because it can, like, pair programming can kind of devolve a little bit into like, I'm looking for this and you're looking for this over here, and we're both trying different things, and like that can work too. But I encourage you to try this framework, so that everyone really has the opportunity to strengthen both of those roles. Quinn, you're on the hot seat. How's it been so far?
I guess so. um, good. I mean, I think I um, I've done pair programming with, like, I want to say like a decent amount of people, and I found like there's certain like things that like have worked for me. I guess I've tried to like codify, and I don't know, like I try and like ask questions if I don't understand something, so like that's been really helpful for me, because there've been a couple times where some code has been written and it works perfectly, and it's not something that I would have thought to do, and my natural instinct is to like maybe tear it down and be like, no, like this is the way to do it, but there are multiple ways to do something. So like fighting that instinct and like knowing this works and it's a great solution. So that's one. I definitely think I'm better at driving, or at least I like driving more. So, but I don't know. I've really been thinking about like listening and what that means as being the driver, like not just like jumping around files and stuff, just like staying still and like taking input. But I definitely think that I could work on some more navigation. So yeah, but I've had a good experience with everybody here. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I really encourage everyone to try the role this week. try both roles, but especially try the role that you're least comfortable with, just to challenge yourself and to grow in that area, and know that like everybody here is working on growing in every way. Like this is a safe space to practice those things. It can be even going to a new job, for example, like that brings with it all kinds of different fears, I guess. Like you're with a new team, but this is a really safe space for growing and being able to acknowledge like, hey, this is hard for me. This part is challenging for me. So I would really like to be able to try to grow in this area. So feel free to like try those different roles, switch it up, and challenge yourself to maybe take on the role that you're less comfortable with. Cool. Any final thoughts, other things that people want to share about pairing and how it's been going?
Well, one tool, but I think maybe it's good that we stick with this for now, but I really have liked live share in the past. And that's particularly because I both when I'm typing and someone's trying to tell me where a semicolon should be, or when I'm trying to tell someone where a semicolon should be, I find it's very easy to just like use your cursor to show that. So I think it's possible for people to use that and not be typing at the same time, but just as a little, for me, I've found it easier to communicate than trying to describe where it is verbally. Yeah, so that's just an idea, but maybe not for this project, but just in general.
Do you want to share like a link to that extension in the TCL-10 channel, just so everyone knows?
Yeah.
What
and the cool thing about it too is that you can share servers, and you can also, if someone is working at the same time, like if you're in two different components, you can like double click on their name and it takes you where they are in the project. So that's why I ended up using it a lot at the end of my boot camp, especially when we were doing big projects where we could work simultaneously on, and then like easily come back together.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for that.
That's awesome, Lauren. We use live share quite a bit at my work actually too. A lot of folks are on VS Code and it's really, really handy. I like it a lot too.
Personally, I found like the weeks where like I've had like the most success are the ones where like we've both sort of found resources on like the general topic, but not really like tried out like things on our own first. So like, you know, when Quinn and I were working on, I think it was like the require auth and some other, I forget what else it was that week that we were doing, like what, I think it was like router stuff, but like we both like I had found an article and he already had some background knowledge. So we were able to like look into like the concepts behind it first, and then just like bring that knowledge together when we were like pair programming. So we both, instead of just like quietly Googling or like trying to read on the fly, came in with like a bit more like information. And I found that made it like super, super awesome for us because we were both sort of like a little bit more up to speed, but hadn't tried any like putting it into practice yet.
And I would definitely second that. Like I haven't gone as far as to like trying to code out a piece of what the solution is and then completely destroy, like just checking it all out and destroying it, and then like doing research just to like have an idea of what like, is possible, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I've been really impressed with everyone's like sharing in their weekly threads all of the different ideas and resources. It's been really powerful, I think, for everyone's work, and I love how you're sharing it in your threads. It's really awesome.
Maybe since I think a lot of us try to do it on Monday or Tuesday, the pairings, maybe on Sunday we could like type our ideas so that on Sunday night everyone can kind of research, and then on Monday everyone will feel like at the same space, I guess.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for sharing your ideas and what your experience has been like. Really appreciate it. All right, Keeley, back to you.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Lauren. That was a great presentation. Thank you for that. All righty, let's hop into the last part, which is our issues for next week. So wanted to just get a quick temperature check. I pulled over issue 7 into the peer review column since it looked like that was already done, Quinn, by one of your commits. So I moved it to peer review instead of done. Matthew, Lauren, and I will just take a quick look at it to make sure that it's like ready to go. But I think we can pretty confidently mark it as done. So I would like to move it, if you all are okay with this, straight to issues 8 and 9, and then that might give us an opportunity to bring in some of the ideas you all suggested for an issue down the line. All right, so issue number 8, as a user, I want to mark an item on my shopping list as purchased so the app can learn how often I buy different items. And we have the acceptance criteria here for that. And then issue number 9, as a user, I want to filter my shopping list to make it easier to locate an item in the list. And we have acceptance criteria here. And then Kat, I saw that you had mentioned this issue. And so I just pulled up the discussion from where that issue was discussed, just to make sure that you all hadn't already knocked it out. So does anyone...
I just flagged that issue because there was the feature, or like the UX feature, to have a like close or an X button to clear the field. Which I was suggesting that we also implement in the search, or not the search, but the add item component in that field as well. If an item is already on the list, we were like leaving it so it could be edited as per like Quinn's suggestion, but then we could also like clear it.
Oh, okay, awesome. That's a great idea. All right, so does anybody have a preference for either 8 or 9? All right. Well, I'm happy to.
I like 9.
Oh,
what do you
sorry,
think?
Quinn, what was that? Did you say you wanted 9?
Oh, that was 9.
All right. All right. Well, why don't I just, Quinn, can you remind me who your pair is this week?
Yeah.
Tiana.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tiana. Yeah.
All right. So Quinn and Tiana, I will give you 9 here. Right, and then Lauren and Kat, 8 is okay for you both? Fantastic. All right, so Kat and Lauren. All right, perfect. We'll move those over to in progress. And then I'll stop sharing. Oh,
Maybe
sorry, Lauren, go ahead.
I might have missed this in a wireframe, but can you guys explain how it works where once it's checked, it just said that it stays there for 24 hours before, I guess, being removed? How, do you guys know how that's working, where if someone types, do they like retype it in again in the future and the app will recognize that it's the same as one that had already been purchased?
That is a great question. I will double check, Lauren, and make sure, but I think, so if an item has been checked and is marked as already bought, I think you can then in that case re-add it as a new item. And then when it's a new item, then it'll check to see if it's already been purchased. But I'll double check the wireframe and make sure that's correct, because that is a good question. Any other questions? Okay, great. All right, so Lauren and Kat, can I ask you all to create your pair branch that you all can work from?
Kat, do you want to do it? You're really fast at it.
I
I can do it. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
can do it. That's totally fine.
Keeley, do you want to, could you show the issues again and maybe read out loud the AC?
Sure thing. Okay, so for number 8 here, so Lauren and Kat's issue. So this is, as a user, I want to mark an item on my shopping list as purchased so the app can learn how often I buy different items. And the acceptance criteria is a user is able to tap a checkbox or similar UI element to mark an item on the list as purchased. And then the item should be shown as checked for 24 hours after a purchase is made. So we assume the user does not need to buy the item again for at least 1 day. And then Lauren, this goes to your question of, so if an item is marked as checked, when we want to add it to the list again, should that count as already being added to the list, or should it be counted as a new item? And so we'll check that as in the acceptance criteria. And
yeah,
then,
I think that for that one in the past, what we've done is that the item remains on the list. It just has a check on it when it comes back. So let's see what had apples on the list. You wouldn't want to be able to add apples again, whether or not it's checked or unchecked.
So sorry, are you saying that it stays on the list, but it's only like inaccessible for a day and then it's back on the list, or?
Yeah, so let's see, user is able to tap a checkbox. So the item and the checkbox is my understanding, and Matt, maybe you can clarify because you've actually done this before, is that the item stays on your list, like, but it just has the checkbox is checked, right? So because I think the idea behind the app is like, oh, I have these items that, like, I always get apples every week. I always get such and such every week. I don't want to have to add it to my list every time. So when I check off apples, like I'm buying it, I still want it to stay on there, but I just want to know that I purchased it, so it's checked.
Yeah, I'd have to double check the way we did it before, but I think we essentially just set something up where like a line went through it and it just showed us that for 24 hours and then it got, so it definitely, I believe it still stays on your list. There's other stages where things get moved to different parts of your list. Those are kind of issues down the line. But I believe at this stage, it's essentially just having some type of CSS feature that shows that it's been purchased, and then 24 hours later, that resets back to the original. I think it's essentially what this is asking to do. But I could double check our previous project.
Cool.
That makes good sense to me. So Lauren, just so we'll make sure that we do resolve that and double check it, but I added, based on this conversation, when an item is checked, that item should not be able to be added again to the list. So if apples is checked and a user tries to type apples, it should already be counted as on the list. I think that is a little bit simpler, honestly, to do. But if that acceptance criteria changes, we'll update this issue.
Yeah. I think this one is more about like the date checking. That's the big challenge of this particular issue, is like checking if it's been on there for 24 hours.
Okay. And then for issue, actually, I will, before I read issue 9 out, Kat, did you create the branch successfully?
Yep, I did. It should be ready for Lauren to pull.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for doing that. And so, Lauren, I'll let you test pulling that branch, but then Quinn and Tiana, before I start reading this acceptance criteria, could I ask one of you to take point on creating your pairs branch?
Sure. Do you have a preference, Tiana?
I don't. You go on ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, Quinn. All right, so Quinn and Tiana, for your issue, as a user, I want to filter my shopping list to make it easier to locate an item on the list. So the acceptance criteria here is display a text field above the top of the shopping list. As a user types into the field, the list should narrow to display only items that contain the text the user has entered, so kind of a fuzzy search functionality. When the field has text in it, the user should be able to tap a UI element, for example, an X button, to clear the field. And the filter text should match any part of the item name. So for example, it should not only match from the start of the string. So if I have, if I type apple, pineapple should show up. Okay, any questions about that?
No.
Very great.
I created a branch.
Awesome.
Very great. All right, everybody, I think that is it. If you have any questions as you start to work on your issue, let Lauren or Matt or I know. We're happy to help you out. Otherwise, have a great rest of your Sunday.
One really quick question. If we do get through our task pretty fast, if we want to start adding those extra tasks at the end, are we like allowed to start a second task or something? Or
Absolutely, yes, please do.
Yeah, and everyone feel free to create issues on the project board. Like, go for it. Go ahead and create issues. And like, those would be the issues that I would pick up. Maybe not start on the predefined Collab Lab issues. Do you know what I mean? So like, feel free to add new issues and then grab those if you want an extra challenge or something else to work on.
All right, great. Thanks so much, everybody. All right, have a good week.
Great work, everyone.
Good luck.
Bye.
See ya.